Are we living in the last days? The time just before Jesus Christ comes back to take his bride, the true church, home to heaven. Many scholars, theologians, and fellow Christians believe so. Thanks for joining us on another edition of Real Life. I'm Eric Godfrey. Just this past June, Francois de Latreille, France's ambassador to the United Nations, made this statement before leaving his post to return to France after serving as a diplomat for 20 years. The world is growing more dangerous and less predictable by the day. We are now in a new world disorder. Each international crisis has the potential to spin out of control. Let me ask you a question. Does it seem like the world has given birth to a global societal breakdown, the likes of which we have never seen in our lifetime? Present day, we now have anarchy in the streets of major cities, an epidemic of savage killings and brutal murders, moral rottenness and decay that we couldn't have imagined even 10 years ago. What in the world is going on? I believe it is the beginning of the end. The world is ripe for the end-time prophecies of the Bible to be fulfilled. In 2 Timothy chapter 4, verses 1 through 4, Paul describes the state of human society in these last days just before Jesus comes again. But know this, difficult times will come in the last days. For people will be lovers of self, lovers of money, boastful, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, ungrateful, unholy, unloving, irreconcilable, slanderers, without self-control, brutal, without love for what is good, traitors, reckless, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, holding to the form of godliness but denying its power. Avoid these people. Now, last days. One writer paraphrased this first verse this way. You emphatically must know what I'm about to tell you. In the very last part of the last days, in the very end of the age, hurtful, harmful, dangerous, unpredictable, uncontrollable, high-risk periods of time will come. The word last in the Greek language is eschatos, which means last in the sense of a final stage in a process. We get the word eschatology from this word, which means the doctrine of the last things, the end times. So in these last end times, difficult or perilous happenings will take place. Difficult can further be defined as troublesome, fierce, savage, violent, dangerous days and seasons. This word is used in Matthew 8:28 of the two demon-possessed men. As they were confronted by Jesus, they were described as exceedingly fierce or extremely violent. The last days are dangerous times which involve dangerous and godless people. It's a time of raging, out of control insanity, increasingly energized by demon activity. In the ensuing verses, Paul describes the basic characteristics of the general population during this time. First, he says, people will be lovers of self, or self-lovers. All the inclinations that are to follow spring from this self-love. In other words, love of self is the foundation for what Paul will describe in the verse and verses that follow. In a twisted way, people today are consumed with self-esteem, self-worth, self-fulfillment, and positive self-image. Narcissism has infected the culture. It's a time of general self-obsession. It's attention-seeking celebrities. It's the my world is the only world mentality. It's digital oversharing and a boom in cosmetic surgery. I said that right, a boom in cosmetic surgery. And speaking of cosmetic surgery, England saw a 13% rise in these procedures, and particularly noted was cosmetic dentistry because people didn't like the look of their teeth in selfies. Someone responded to this and said that the solution to that problem was stop taking selfies. Dr. Elias Abudajad is the clinical professor of psychiatry and behavioral sciences at Stanford University and the author of Virtually You, The Dangerous Powers of the E-Personality. He recently stated, we're living in an era where humans are putting forth their edited and inflated versions of their lives. They idealize self. And then they are quite literally falling in love with themselves. This humorous poem might sum up this subject of self-love best. I had a little tea party this afternoon at 3. It was very small, 3 guests in all, just I, myself, and me. Myself ate up the sandwiches and I drank up the tea. It was also I who ate the pie and passed the cake to me. Self-love can very often exclude God, which in turn can lead man to become his own self-willed God. Next, Paul talks about love of money, meaning obsessed with money. In 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 10, Paul writes, "The love of money is the root of all sorts of evil." Love of, or lusting after money, is craving money above all else. It is someone who constantly thinks about it and plans what self can do with it. Love of money can affect relationships, emotional and physical health, and gives a false sense of hope for the future. Solomon wrote in Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verse 10, "He who loves money will not be satisfied with money, nor he who loves wealth with his income. This also is vanity." So love, or lust of money, is accumulating more and more, but never being satisfied. Grant Sabatier is an author and blogger who's been featured in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and Money Magazine. CNBC dubbed him the Millennial Millionaire because he went from $2.26 in his pocket to over $1 million in 5 years. Grant said this, "I bought into the myth and pursued money above all else. It is my top millennial money mistake. Looking back, I sacrificed too much for it. During the 5 years it took me to make my million, I gave up my countless opportunities. I was getting rich, but I wasn't living a rich life." Next, Paul talks about boastful. This characterizes someone who is boastful in words and gestures and outward behavior. It's a person who exaggerates their own worth or importance in an overbearing way. Selfish people can be characterized as boastful because they tend to talk mostly about themselves. They think they deserve everything in life. Boasters are the proverbial know-it-alls. Someone said they're the heroes of their own story. Kind of like the loudmouth, ambitious athlete who is not very talented. After a while, he got tired of being booed at by the crowd and decided to leave and seek his fortunes overseas. When he finally returned, he was forever telling stories about his victories. In London, he would say, "I jumped so high I was out of sight." If you don't believe me, go over and ask anyone who was there. "There's no need," one listener said. "Why don't you just pretend you're in London and jump out of sight right now?" Then Paul says proud. Proud means arrogant. This is to show oneself above. A proud person is described as one who looks down on others and thinks they really are better than other people. These are the elitists who can appear in many forms and fashion. It could be the ordinary man or woman, the celebrity, sports figures, politicians, financiers, businessmen, etc., etc. The Beatles' John Lennon once said, "Christianity will go. It will vanish and shrink. I needn't argue about that. I know I'm right and I will be proved right. We're more popular than Jesus now. Pity poor John Lennon." Blasphemers. These are evil speakers, slanderers, those who use abusive speech. Modern society is infected with people who curse and insult God and man with blasphemous, vile words. Using God's name in vain and spewing out F-bombs are common among both men and women today. It's prevalent in Hollywood, the music industry, schools, homes, and even in the halls of government. Next, Paul lists disobedient to parents. This speaks of a son or a daughter who continually refuses to be persuaded and therefore continually refuses to obey. If a child will not respect and mistreats their parents, who will they respect? If they don't obey and are not loyal to their parents who birthed, raised, and nurtured them, who will they obey and be loyal to in life? A large part of the breakdown of modern society is the breakdown of the home. And within the home, one of the culprits is the blatant disobedience of children to their parents. Some of today's sons and daughters are verbally and physically abusing their parents, even killing them. It's a travesty, and the culture is reaping what it has sown. When a child disobeys their parents, they're breaking the fifth commandment, which says, honor your mother and your father. Proverbs 29:15 says, the rod and reproof give wisdom, but a child left to himself brings shame to his mother. Now, before we leave this specific characteristic of the last days, let's think about what fosters this spirit of disobedience in a child or a teen. Of course, sin is at the root, but an added factor could be absentee fathers, unreal expectation by the parents, a lack of correct discipline because of laziness and fear of not being liked, permissiveness and no boundaries set by the parents because of self-guilt, marital conflicts and arguments about things and people, employment or finances, which can harm the child's emotions. True, some children are born strong-willed, but there are ways to deal with that also. And like anything else in life, it takes effort and consistency to properly discipline children. I'll stop now for a commercial between disobedient to parents and the next characteristic, ungrateful. This just in a couple of days off the newswire. A young man from India pushed his brand new BMW birthday present into the water because he was upset his parents didn't buy him a Jaguar. He got mad because it was too small for him and his pals. His father later responded by saying this, we could only afford to give him a BMW. We never imagined he would do anything like this. Wow. Talk about a segue into the next word, ungrateful or unthankful. This is a person who's void of gratitude towards God or others. In Luke 6:35, it records, for he himself, meaning God, is kind to the ungrateful and evil man. Now imagine that. That's just like God, gracious and full of compassion for us. But unfortunately, our current day is ripe with ungrateful, unthankful, complaining people. Some think and even say, I work hard for this. It was my effort. I put in the hours. I deserve this. Do you hear that spirit of the age creeping in? The self-love, the pride, the arrogance? Listen, it's only because of the good Lord above that you and I have a heartbeat, are breathing, and exist to accomplish anything in life. We're so blessed in America. And shame on any of us who entertain even a moment of ingratitude. And let me go further, and bear with me in this little rant. I'm tired of people and groups putting down our great country. Are we perfect? No. But please let me know when someone finds that elusive utopia on earth. God has blessed us with liberty and freedom and resources and homes and hospitals and grocery stores and water. And how long should we park here? But in spite of all of that, we have a society that has lost the ability to easily say thank you, even if you've just opened the door or let someone go first in line. Unholy. This is defined as profane, indecent, and shameless. This word is used of a person who refused to bury a dead body or who committed incest. These type of people are gratified by extreme lust and sinful passions of their flesh. They are those who flaunt their godlessness with no fear of God. They spread their irreverence by speech and music and movies and television and social media. The more vulgar, the more shocking, and the more bizarre, the better. And speaking of vulgar, shocking, and bizarre, the grocery store chain Whole Foods is and has sponsored a drag queen story hour event designed to indoctrinate children into transgenderism and homosexuality. Yes, you heard me right. This happened recently in Atlanta, Georgia, where Atlanta Mayor Keisha Bottoms invited a certain drag queen to perform a story hour at City Hall. There was also an additional event held at the Fulton County Library branch. At these events, men dressed in women's clothes read books that teach kids that boys might actually be girls and vice versa. In Los Angeles, a drag queen has read to children at the Long Beach Public Library. At a Lansdale, Pennsylvania library event, a drag queen used the name Annie, A-N-N-I-E, Christ, to mock Christianity. According to one news source, drag queen story hours are a global phenomenon, with more than 35 chapters in the U.S. alone. In Houston earlier this year, 2 drag queens who participated in the story hours were later revealed to be convicted child molesters and transgender prostitutes. Can you say with me, unholy, unholy? Are we living the last days? You better believe it. And we will dig into the next part of this passage in 2 Timothy in our next video. For now, please don't forget to visit our website, www.realize7.org, in order to view other videos. We would also appreciate it if you would subscribe to our channel and share these videos with others. In closing, be blessed. Remember, God is in control. And for the believer, the best is yet to come. Until next time, this is Real Life, and I'm Eric Godfrey.